I think there are about 300 of you here today, so give yourselves a hand. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's exceptional program, Future Cities, Essential Elements for Building and Maintaining a World-Class Quality of Life. We really must start today's program with a very special shout out to FivePoint for graciously being our presenting sponsor. Let's hear it for FivePoint. All right, we must also extend our appreciation to the Urban Land Institute of Orange County, Inland Empire, and Orange County Realtors for their super promotional efforts regarding today's program. Please thank them with our applause. Now, please allow me a special moment to recognize my fellow board members for their generous and continuous support of our programs. Will all OC Forum board members in attendance today please stand and be recognized? I am truly honored to serve with all of you on this board as we get ready to celebrate our 30th anniversary in 2020. Now, what a fabulous turnout today. Thank you for joining us, and please begin, if you haven't already, to eat your lunch as we are going to keep things moving today. At this time, I'd like to welcome FivePoint's Executive Vice President of Public Affairs, the charming Steve Churm.
I think the first time publicly said charming, so that's charming, but thank you, Paul, very much, okay? I appreciate that. Wow, fantastic. Thank you and good afternoon to everybody. Looking across this sold-out ballroom and hearing this is the OC Forum's largest attended event of the year, it's clear that today's topic, Future Cities, Essential Elements for Building and Maintaining a World-Class Quality of Life, is of wide and deep interest in this room today. No matter what field or industry you're from, the quality of life in our cities and communities matters to each and every one of us. Today, we are fortunate to have three panelists and a moderator who just happen to know a thing or two about sustainable communities, the types of places that stand the test of time and connect generations of inhabitants from all walks of life. These four individuals have built unique and closely watched careers by listening, collaborating, and designing the elements that make up healthy and vibrant communities of today and tomorrow. Now, by some turn of great luck, we were able to bring these four exceedingly busy individuals together for what promises to be a thoughtful and compelling conversation for the next 60 minutes. So let's meet them. Please welcome to the Irvine Hilton stage the chairman and CEO of FivePoint, one of the largest community builders in coastal California, Mr. Emile Haddad. Next, we have the president and CEO of City of Hope, a world leader in cancer research and treatment. Please welcome Mr. Robert Stone. And our third panelist this afternoon is the co-CEO of Gensler, recognized as one of the world's leading design firms. Please welcome Andy Cohen. And to moderate today's panel, the OC Forum welcomes back a very familiar face, Steve Pontel, President and CEO of National Core one of the nation's largest nonprofit developers of affordable and senior housing. Please welcome Steve Pontel. And with that, gentlemen, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Steve. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. I think this panel is going to keep your attention rapidly. I'd like to add, just a couple of, comments. Emile is, as was indicated, not only one of the largest, but I think more importantly, one of the most innovative and creative community developers that we have in the state of California. So give another round of applause for Orange County's own Emile Haddad. And years ago, I had the opportunity to serve on one of the advisory groups for City of Hope out in the Inland Empire. Who here has had a family member or a friend that has benefited from the City of Hope? Raise your hand. So let's give Robert a huge Orange County welcome and round of applause. And the person in the room that I've actually known the longest is Andy. And so years ago, I did work with Gensler. We were reinventing the office at the time. And so it's a great pleasure to be reunited with Andy Cohen. Welcome, Andy, again to Orange County. So our goal today is to bring up some of the issues, some of the opportunities, but really begin to think about what are some of the solutions that cities should be thinking about in order to be world-class, in order to be able to lead the future. So the opening question is just a little bit of getting some issues on the table. What do you see as some of the challenges that cities need to be thoughtful about as they are preparing for the future? And Emile, let's start with you.
Well, look, I think if you look at where we are today and what cities need to be looking for, I think the number one thing that cities are going to be looking for is how do you create a place that attracts talent? Because the dynamic has changed a lot from the days when you graduate and you go beg people to get you a job. Today, CEOs are begging the right talent to come work for them. And Robert will tell you that he is trying to attract the best talent in the world for cancer treatment. And I think that if you look today at the challenge that cities have is how do you create a place that attracts talent? And how do you do it and be able to check boxes that are not easy for cities to check, including housing, public education, healthcare, social equity while keeping an eye on environmental justice. Yeah, we see cities today, and I think what we're seeing in cities today is an unintended consequence of what happened as a result of decades of the Industrial Revolution. Cities became the place for factories, they became the post child for pollution, for neglect of a certain element of society as we started sprawling out. And now I think we have a flight back to the city because that's what's going to happen. Over the coming 25 years, 2/3 of the world's population is going to be living in cities. So I think that cities have to really rethink everything that they've done before. And I think that one of the biggest things that they need to rethink is, the way they structure themselves in terms of zoning codes and issues like that. Because unless you are willing to destroy everything you relied on in the past, I think you're going to end up having issues and headwinds going forward.
Right, and I know one of the biggest challenges, how do you change from the traditional way, the institutional way that currently exists to be able to accommodate the future? And Robert, healthcare is a somewhat tradition-oriented industry, and yet change is happening so fast. What do you see as that relationship between what is important about the relationship between healthcare and cities? And how do you think more about the fact that healthcare cannot be an island unto itself, but actually has to be integrated into communities?
All right, well, Steve, I think that's exactly right. And it goes to what Emile just said about building communities. You attract talent, so you have to have cities that attract talent. My world is cancer care, and the advances in cancer care are coming so fast and so furious, and I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about technology and its role in that you need to be able to come together as a community and to move forward, and you have to break down silos. When Emile and I first started talking about coming together and have a partnership in the Great Park, one of the things that we discussed was the need for healthcare, health providers like City of Hope, to not just address challenges with other healthcare providers. We needed to invite others in, but we needed to talk to designers. We needed to talk to community builders, to civic leaders, because the challenges of healthcare impact all of us. I was amazed at how many hands went up when you've been contacted or touched by City of Hope, which was the question. If the question was broader, which was how many of you have been touched by cancer or had a friend touched by cancer, everybody's hand would have gone up. And when you add diabetes and other health concerns, that's where our focus needs to be.
Right, and so Andy, as you travel the world, and thank you for stopping by after solving the riots in Paris, heading to Hong Kong to solve that problem. But what are you seeing that cities around the world are doing in order to attract talent and be able to break down the silos? What models have you come across that you thought, that's pretty interesting?
Well, first, it's humbling to be on stage with these two guys, with Robert and Emile. They're incredible, innovative leaders and incredible clients, and I'm humbled to be here. First and foremost, I would answer your question this way, is that in all our careers in the room, this is a unique and profound time that we can make a huge difference, make a profound difference in the world we live in. In cities, and again, my firm practices in over 100 countries, in cities today, for the first time in human history, more people live in cities than not. It's a major statement. More people live in cities. In the United States, 65% of people live in cities. And so this, profound change is taking place. And we're finding that through our research and what we've been focused on, and also, by the way, 80% of the GDP of the world are in cities. So that's why cities are so profound, and these two guys are leading the charge in this type of innovation. We're focused on, and we've been focusing on, major challenges right now. Major challenges that we're facing. Big, hairy, audacious challenges, again, that these two gentlemen are right on top of. The first one is climate change. And you're hearing about climate change over and over again, but we're seeing right now, if you think about it, most people think that automobiles or industry are the top producer of CO2, but it's actually buildings. Buildings, architecture and buildings have over 50% of the energy used in CO2 of buildings. So we in the built environment have a chore there. Mobility, and mobility for our cities is huge. First time since 1917, when the Model T came on board, we have the opportunity to take our city streets back for people, not for cars, not choked with buses and cars, but for people, where now we have parking stalls, will be amenity space, green space, healthcare space, community space, but it won't be parking spaces anymore. By 2035, by 2040, in most of our lifetime, which is remarkable. The third one is connected cities, and you see data doubling and tripling every year, gigabytes upon gigabytes, and we have the opportunity through technology and all the great work that Robert and Emile are doing to really make a difference to technology. And then the last piece is really what you're focused on, Steve, and this whole social impact of homelessness and how we deal with the challenges of homelessness and housing, affordable housing. So that's what we're seeing out there in the architectural world around the world as the big, hairy challenges that in our lifetime we're going to be working on and making changes to.
So, Emile, Robert talked about the silos, and what I've come to observe is silos are rational because the issues are increasingly technical. So water people only have time to talk to water people, and transportation people, and housing, health, et cetera. But what are the silos you think we either need to bridge or break in order for cities to be, the most successful in the future? The partnership that you're developing with City of Hope is an example of that, but what are some of the other silos that you think are the most important we figure out how to bridge?
Well, I think that we shouldn't be thinking about bridging any silos. I think we should be thinking about breaking down all silos. I think that if you want to bridge silos, you're just basically putting a Band-Aid on an issue. And you have to think about where silos came from. And I think they came as a product, as I said, of the latest period that was similar to what we're going through, which was the disruption of the Industrial Revolution, of the Agricultural Revolution. Why? Because there were three things that actually controlled our life for the last 150 years. One was the automobile. Two was the factory, which was the product of the Industrial Revolution. And as a result, three was the watch. We became basically servants to these three machines. And these three machines needed to work in silos because the factory needed the silo of, you just mentioned all the departments. Well, departments were created because there was a chain effect that followed the factory. And everybody had to be on time, so we all moved in, moved out. The 9 to 5 and 5 to 9 silos. We worked, and then we abandoned, we went to live. In my opinion, that's all yesterday's story. Because we live in times right now where everything is coming together. It's really, I segregate people today in two groups. Those who are people sitting at this stage who realize that we're going through radical change right now. And for us to move into the future, we have to let go of the past. And those who are denying that change, and I think those are going to be the IBM of computers. So we either are going to realize that there's a major shift we're going through. The disruption we're going through today is not a pivot at all. Airbnb hasn't built one room yet, and they're larger than the chains combined, the top three chains combined. And it's not a technology company, it's a hospitality company that uses technology. So from my perspective, I think the starting point is forget about everything that we grew up with. I tell people in my office, I want everybody to leave every success they've had in their career at the door before they walk in, because that success might be actually the anchor in terms of their ability to see the future. So that's how I see it. I see it as destroy everything, start all over again, with an excitement of the fact that we are living in a period of history that we're very fortunate to be living in.
But I don't mean to rub them. I'll ask Emile a question. I'm learning from him as we go. But Emile, as you think about it, isn't the reality that organizations and people who are employed by them have a job to do today, and that the real challenge is to perform today while keeping your eye on tomorrow and have no rules? I mean, one of the things that got us together, when you think of cancer, which was the first reason we met and started talking, cancer in the next 10 years, the number one cause of cancer will be obesity, bad diet, and lack of exercise. Number one cause of cancer. We will not solve that problem just talking to healthcare providers. It's creating communities together that will break down silos and come up with solutions. And I've heard you say this many times. Come up with solutions that we haven't even dreamed of yet. It's not trying to solve a problem. It's putting the people together so that tomorrow's problems can be addressed.
Look, I mean, the topic is cities and future cities. And if you think about one common factor all through history, from the beginning of time of when the first city was created 3,000 years BC, there's one thing that actually was a factor of creating cities, and that's collaboration. Because that's really what a city is. There's people coming together, so the critical mass, as expensive as it might be being part of that city, the critical mass and the economic benefit you get from collaboration overcomes the cost of being in the city. That's what it is. And it's not any different today. It's a different collaboration. We're all coming together because we are trying to think about what the future needs. Because remember, the future hasn't been written yet. We're going to write it.
That's right.
The question is, do you want to be a writer or do you want to be a reader?
I'll jump in for a second, and what these guys have taught me is, it really is, the future of cities is about creating vibrancy and live, work, and play, and health and wellness. 4 areas: live, work, play, health, and wellness. And they used to be more segregated. People would live separately from where they work, separately where they played, and obviously health and wellness is the glue that holds it all together. And now what we're seeing in the major cities around the world, and here in the developments that these two gentlemen are working on, it all comes together, as Emile and Robert said. It coalesces together, where it creates vibrancy, where people can live and work and play in one community or one city. And I think the example of what's happening at FivePoint and with City of Hope is that example where coming together. New projects of the future will be about coalescing all these functions together and not separate functions, as say the old Orange County was with separate segregated areas. It's that coalescing that's going to make that vibrancy and city of the future.
So let me try and put a box around this, because what Robert asked was very interesting. How do you maintain your business enterprise today and do what you play the game you have to play today and prepare for a future? And just to put a little bit of a context on it, Robert, I'll share a story. I heard a City of Hope doctor a number of years ago talk about, in the not too distant future, you will get an injection. The injection will be nanotechnology that will assemble itself inside of you, go over to your appendix, cut out your appendix, cut a slot in your colon, pull the appendix into your colon, sew it back up, and the next time you have a bowel movement, your appendix will have been removed. So just talk a little bit about, sorry to bring that up.
Look, our president of Orange County, City of Hope, our president of Orange County, City of Hope is in the audience, Annette Walker, and she promised me that will happen by next Tuesday. So I just want you to know that we are right there. So go ahead.
But just talk about, and then the question I'm going to come back to is, what advice do you have for community leaders on how to both keep up and begin to facilitate change? But just talk about the pace of change, Robert, that you're seeing within your industry.
Well, so City of Hope's been around for 100 years. We were started as a social experiment to eradicate tuberculosis, with the idea that communities could come together to solve a health problem. And around the time we turned to cancer, a few years later, in 1950, the pace of change in medical knowledge doubled every 50 years. By 1980, medical knowledge doubled every 7 years. 2010, it doubled every 3.5 years. And it's estimated by 2020, it'll be every 73 days. Think of that and the great promise. We're in the hope business, and there's great hope, but if you can't harness it and make it applicable to real people and real lives, it goes wasted in many effects. And part of the things that, Andy has been, and his firm have been helping us think this way through talent for a number of years, and Emile much more recently. But the idea is, how do you get people to focus, Steve, to your question, on today's world? We have a mission to deliver, and if you have cancer, you don't want to wait and hear, well, there's something tomorrow. Cancer patients spend their entire lives waiting for an appointment, waiting for a cure. You need the best care today. At the same time, however, if your nose is to the grindstone and you're just trying to work so hard day in and day out, you don't make progress on tomorrow. It's incremental. And so to answer your question, Steve, what we talk about at City of Hope is being ambidextrous in focusing on today, making incremental progress, but then being willing to take risk, being willing to partner with others in our industry and in other industries to create a tomorrow that no one's thought about.
Steve, can I? So here's my view on this. I think we can do both. I think that the problem is we've never really allowed our workforce to be empowered enough to help us think about the future, because we give them tasks. Your job is to do this. We've tried very hard to create a culture that says everybody's empowered. Everybody's empowered to be their own decision-making to a certain extent. There's some protocol. But I want to listen to everybody. We had 22 interns this summer. And if you were to speak to any of them, they all had the same comments at the end. They were absolutely not expecting to do what they did. They came and they actually spent a lot of time with me personally, helping me learn from them where their mind is. So, and they empowered them. They would come and say, well, we think we should do this. I said, great. I called my project and I said, let's go build what they just talked about. The intern looked at me like, no, that was just sharing an idea. I said, no, we're going to do it. Because if you're not willing to take a leap of faith and try new ideas, you're going to keep on being afraid of that change. And I think that I can assure you this group in the room has an ability to do more than what it does every day, if it is actually given the ability to do it. So I think that the culture of the corporate world has to start changing to allow people to do more. I think you need to encourage people to not clock out at 5 o'clock and stop that dialogue. I think that the world is going to be not 9 to 5 and 5 to 9 anymore. It's going to be a continuous process that actually does things but goes into a think tank. I think it's not an accident that today offices are having wine bars and beer bars and movie nights and all that, because they want, not because they want them to keep on doing what they did from 9 to 5, because we want to put them in a think tank to think about the next thing we need to think about. And that's really what we need to do. And that's why I started by saying, forget about what we've done in the past. Think about how much, I've made a habit every day, because we go to the office and we're pulled in different directions. So I don't even have an ability to think about strategy because I'm more tactical. But I've had a habit where every night, everybody goes to sleep at home, I go to my backyard and spend 2 hours alone. That's my time to think about and dream about the future. And I think we need to allow people to do more of that and listen to them, not just have them talk about it.
So, Andy, where have you seen communities, cities, leaders that are both meeting current needs, but setting the table, creating the opportunity for the innovations that are coming, whether it's around mobility or energy, or where have you seen that actually working, or where you see people at least thinking about it?
Yeah. First of all, what I've already learned in this panel is I'm going to work out tonight. There's no doubt about it.
And then think for 2 hours in your backyard.
Exactly. Those are the key takeaways for me. No, I would look, there are great examples around the world where there are seeds of innovation that are occurring with this coalescing of live, work, and play and the future of all the different challenges we discussed. I use examples all the time of, again, I'll come right back to our two panelists, where in every community there is 1 or 2 innovative projects that are going to make a difference in that community, in that city, in the world. We're doing work, as I mentioned before, in Shanghai and many other cities around the world. But right here in Orange County, I think the FivePoint project, the Great Park project, is that example. And I'll use that again, because why? Because it coalesces all these different ideas, Emile's vision of coalescing all these different ideas of how people experience. I'm going to use the word experience a lot. The human experience. We talk about all this technology. We talk about all these different things that are going on. But at the end of the day, it's about the human experience, about people wanting to have fulfilled lives. And by creating communities that are vibrant, creating communities that have these already built-in necessaries, including health and wellness. And I can't emphasize enough how much health and wellness in our daily lives, as you just pointed out, is so important and integrated in these communities. But if there's not experience, and I want to talk about experience, keep on going, because it's the patient experience. And I know City of Hope, that's all they talk about, is the patient experience. It's not about the doctors, it's about the patient experience. And I've heard unbelievable hero stories of people who have survived because of the City of Hope. Really tear-jerking stories. Or what Emile does with live, work, and play, and how people experience living in a community together. That's the visceral experience that are created in these special projects. Again, there's seeds going on right now. When I'm out there speaking all the time, I'm also talking about our governmental officials getting on board the significant change. We're going to have to make significant change because of climate change. Even if you don't believe it, we're going to have to make change, because you know what? We're going to have rising seawaters. And here in Orange County, the ocean is going to rise, and we're going to have to deal with it right on our coast. In cities like Miami, Miami is going to be underwater with 5 feet more of water. Underwater. Lower Manhattan and the Stock Exchange, underwater. These are major issues that are coming at us in the next 30 to 50 years. And if we don't deal with them now, those kind of issues are significant in the future.
Right.
Steve, I think you touched on something that I think is very important, and I would like to dig deeper in it, because I think it is an issue that needs to be thought about. You asked about how do leaders who are implementing change. And today I think one of the toughest jobs that you could have is be a policymaker in a country like this country. Because you either have a system, which we don't want, of Dubai, where you have one person who makes the decision, and as a result, you have a city that gets built out of the desert that today is being viewed as one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world. Well, that's one-man decision, money, and decision-making. Well, that's not democracy, and that's not what we have, and we want to keep the system that we have. So the question is, how do you actually get re-elected? By doing something that is not going to be very popular with people who might not be able to see that change or not like it. And I think today you really need, because if we don't, what's going to happen is the next breed of leaders that we're going to find be elected are those who are actually reacting to an issue. To take social inequity. We all know it. We all know what we need to do. We all need to build more affordable housing. Tell me who would be elected as in city council in Irvine on a platform of I want to build 10,000 more homes that are all affordable housing. Nobody will. So, okay, so what do I do? The reality is, what's going to happen is if you don't make that decision, if you don't educate and make that decision, somebody's going to come and run on a platform of socialism, a model that has failed all through history. And it's going to be more of a reaction. Climate change. Politicians today are reacting to it as a reaction, not proactive. You know, we ended up going and making a decision to build the first city in the world that's in net zero greenhouse gas emission. We're building it. We're not actually. I didn't say it as because of that. I mean, I basically was saying, look, I'm fed up of going to conferences where people talk about climate change. Come do it. Let's go ahead and let's do something about it. And I think that the question you asked about leaders, I think there's a lot of leaders who want to, but they won't be in a leadership role if they do.
Right.
Yeah, I would just add that what Emile's talking about is long cycle decisions, the decisions we have to make today. And that's the issue, is the cycle of politics is 2 or 4 years. And these are long cycle, 20, 30, 40-year decisions that these two in private practice are making, but our government officials got to get on board. Let's add, again, on mobility. If you think about it, in 20, 30 years, everyone who arrived here in a car, you're going to be arriving here in a driverless car. And think about the implications of that to our cities and how we can make our cities great. So shouldn't we be planning that now, which again, these two guys are doing? Shouldn't we be planning that now for the cities of tomorrow? It's today, 30 years is within our lifetime. You will be in a driverless car and you will not be arriving by your own car.
So Steve, Steve, I want to.
I'm used to it. You go ahead.
You're used to it?
Yeah, I've got it. You go right ahead.
You feel like at home.
Yeah, this is
what
like every
happened to
day.
you at home.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Yes, I'm getting my frustration out from home.
I get it.
Look, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think it's, so the question is how? Because we can sit here and identify the problem. And this is really goes to why we're here. Because we've never had 3 people who come. I'm the only one from real estate. But what we're saying over here is it's all going to be about all people coming together as partners. If he and I and Andy and Chris and Bill and people who might not have been partners come together to sit down and educate and bring the public side to the table as a public-private partnership and explain to them that this is not a developer who's being labeled. Right. It's actually about a group of people who believe that the future needs to be designed differently. Then that's how we're going to get there. And all we need is the public side to start taking that same leap of faith we're taking together. So I'm sorry.
No, as always, you stole my message, Emile. That's perfect. But I think that the answer really is how we work together. And it comes down to leadership in many ways. City of Hope and what we do has an advantage that I think we can learn from, which is we're singularly focused on cancer. And that you'd be not surprised to see how much that unites people. I spent a fair amount of time in Washington, which is not known for uniting people these days. And everybody is against cancer. Cancer is the competition. And we have the ability to put that mission up front and then the willingness to work together. And I think that's why we've come together so well, the three of us, and leaders can emulate that. It's not a hierarchical viewpoint. I mean, so we shouldn't be modeling Dubai in how we work together. What we should do is think of ourselves as a network of networks and how we can put pieces together, and that has profound implications in healthcare for the type of leadership competency you're going to recruit, you're going to maintain, how you're going to reward, and how you're going to incentivize. And that's where the future lies.
One of the things that we do is when we're talking about an affordable housing project, which is probably one of the most difficult developments to do because of the opposition, we'll get the school leaders to advocate, the health leaders to advocate, the business leaders to advocate, the faith community to advocate, because if we're talking as a developer, people are here, wah, 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 wah. And we're very proud to be Newhall's affordable housing partner up on the ranch. But I think you raise a great point about almost creating a coalition of the willing, or however you want to start building like-minded relationships across the sectors. Because if people care about education and education cares about housing, then they're going to care about housing, et cetera. And so one of the challenges is, how do you find those like-minded people? Where would you go? I know one of the things I used to advise cities is everybody knows who the largest employers in your city are. You need to go find out who the fastest growing employers in your city are and find out why are they in your city and what are their issues. But where would you go to find like-minded people to include in this conversation?
So I can tell you I'm spending a lot of time looking for them. And there's two of them here on stage, and there's few actually partners who are CEOs sitting here. And I'm simply going out and saying, here's what I think the world is going through. And I believe that the only way we're going to be able to think about the future is for us to come together. Our relationship with the City of Hope is not a transaction. Because real estate, and we're all mostly real estate here, is a transactional business. In traditional way, I would have sold them a building or leased them a building and collected the rent, and that's not our relationship. We're partners. What does a real estate developer have to do with healthcare? I have everything to do with healthcare, because I provide the place that he is going to actually cure people and deliver healthcare. And one of the things that is broken today is healthcare. And if we can't sit down and figure out a way to actually change that, because our home could be actually doing your diagnostics one day. I'm not going to know that, but he is actually working on it. We can deliver healthcare to the house, but I'm not going to do it alone, because I don't know anything about healthcare, but I have somebody with the same vision and a leader who says, I'm willing to do it. Look, the City of Hope had an ability to go anywhere they wanted. And they made a decision on the second round, to invest $1 billion in a community. And Robert will tell you, it's an investment because we both saw the world and we want to build a model of what the future looks like. So I think you're going to have dialogue with people, and I think you will be able to figure very quickly who's living in the past and who's actually
So you look outside of your silo for people that are really interested in this conversation. Go ahead,
It shows up pretty quickly. You sit down and you have a dialogue with someone, and if the entire conversation is transactional in nature or today's problems, you know that they're caught up in the known world and today. I mean, Emile talked about our relationship. If you went back and looked at the public coverage, the press coverage of our relationship, 2 years ago, almost, you would have seen the announcement that we were going to build a 200 million, 70,000 square foot ambulatory clinic in the Great Park. It was a transaction, and it would have benefited the people of Orange County who wouldn't have to travel to Duarte and other places for care. We knew that 20% of the county leaves the county for their cancer care, and it was going to be a benefit to the county. When we got to know each other, we went from $200 million small ambulatory clinic to $1 billion innovation, research, and care composite that was going to be embedded in the Great Park community. as an experiment in many ways. The Great Park community is it's a laboratory that allows us, the three of us, to come together and figure out how we change lives, not just cure cancer.
You know, I would add on to what both of these guys are saying is, it really is about coalescing vision. I have the opportunity of sitting with a lot of CEOs, and it used to be just about the vision or brand of that organization. And now CEOs and companies, American companies mostly, are recognizing that you have to coalesce people from a diversity of points of view, diversity of thinking. That's what's going to be successful. And actually also, obviously, again, back to the public side, public-private partnerships, where you together are creating the vision for a city or a community, just like these two guys got together. Very, very pointed that it was going to be just a project, and now it's a vision for the future of the community for Orange County. Very different than just a project, 200,000 square foot project, a big project, but the vision is what counts. And I see that all the time in cities when you have the right city council or right mayor and you have the right vision put in place. That's when it's coalescing all the experts. There are so many experts in so many fields in this room, and when it comes together, and you see that critical thinking, this is what you do all the time, bringing that critical thinking together and understanding that 1 + 1 = 5, that's when we win.
So this is what I have so far, and we're going to open it up to questions in just a couple of minutes, so think about your questions. Number one, we need to acknowledge the world is changing. Number two, we need to be prepared to work parallel paths, deal with today and plan for the future simultaneous. Number three, we need to look outside of our industry, our silo, to make sure we see what's going on. Number four, we need to be intentional about it. We need to take the time to be strategic in our thinking. Number five, we need to reach out and meet people and talk to people that we would not normally come into contact with. And then finally, build new partnerships and relationships that can really forge the future. Would that summarize most of the points?
It does, but I think we will be remiss if we don't talk about Orange County, because this is the OC Forum. And
Orange County.
I think we need to talk about that, because this is supposed to be our real estate. And I would start by saying, look, real estate is nothing but structures that house people. So at the end of the day, everything we're doing is going to have to be about the people who are going to actually be either in office space or homes or whatever it is. And it's interesting, I always say that I went to school of engineering and he went to school of architecture, and both will tell you that every project we were given in school didn't give us any information about the people who are going to be living in that space. It was all about space and abstract. And the one thing that I think we do at the company is we start with the social element and then get informed about what we build. Andy has spent a lot of time with me, and he will tell you, I start with who's going to be living or who's going to be going in the park. You need to understand that first before we start talking about real estate. The other thing that I think we're trying to do here, and just to give you a preview of what this relationship means to the future, is I go back to my first point of attracting talent. I think Orange County is a very unique place because it has established itself right now as it's on the verge of going into big cities in the future or falling back to be suburbia. That's really where we are, because we have everything here going for us. But when you go and talk to people outside Orange County, most of the world still thinks of Orange County as a suburbia. And it's not. And we're losing, actually, companies. We're not gaining companies. You look at some of the big companies that actually new economy companies, we're losing them. So we need to find a way to get them back. And when you go around and ask, what is the number one reason why companies are not being able to convince talent that Orange County is what it is, it's always one thing. It's boring. It has everything. It has airports, infrastructure, midway to, but it's a boring place. It's viewed as at 9 o'clock, I can't find a restaurant. And that's the number one reason why people are going to San Francisco sleeping on a couch, not being in Silicon Valley. So what we're trying to do in this partnership is going to plant a seed with a blue chip brand in healthcare, research. He's going to attract a lot of people who want to be close to him. And that starts building a nucleus of what could become the hub of healthcare and research in the state of California, if not the country or the world. There's no reason why we can't have it. because we have the space, we have all the elements. We just need to get people like him who now want to be close to him to come together. Now I have partnership with water polo. Here's the CEO of water polo sitting there. We have Live Nation. We have incubation. We're trying to bring everything. When people ask why we're building amphitheaters and food and beverage facilities that are different than that, or sports complexes, it's all because these are the elements that you have to put together to create a beating heart of a place and allow people to start thinking about the place differently.
Sure.
The other thing I think is important is we need to get away from thinking of Orange County as only available for the rich. Because you will never be able to have a sustainable society if it's homogeneous. It doesn't exist. I mean, in the new economy, you really have to look at it as a blend of everything, because that's the only thing that's going to allow us to do it. So I am very optimistic about Orange County, but I'm scared to death that we might wake up 20 years from now and realize that we missed an opportunity.
Right. So one of the things that I often hear about Orange County is, hey, we're built out. How do you react to that?
Well, no, we're not, because San Francisco, you look at it, is more built out, yet I can see buildings going up. I think, go back to the point I made before about codes and policy making. Of course we're built out if you're going to live by the codes that were written in 1965. Yeah, of course. But if you're going to go ahead and intensify and start creating more of urban, look, we have a train station, and I'm trying to create an element around the train station with actually healthcare to create a hub. Anywhere else in the world, you have all the land we have around the train station, you would be actually thinking about, when Amazon was making the bid, 8 million square feet was nothing. We could actually put in that area around the train station 50 million square feet. No, we're not built out. If we want to think single-family detached homes, yes, we are.
Right.
But if we're going to think about the future, we're not.
So who has a microphone that's out in the audience? Do we have a floating microphone?
Well, we have one.
We have one. So go ahead and get my attention. Get my attention if you have a question, and I'm going to put Andy on the spot since you get to leave Orange County.
All right.
Go ahead and talk about, on the boring, non-boring scale, or attracting talent, or however you want to characterize it. What is your perception of Orange County? And we'll give him a guard out afterwards, so he'll be okay.
I'm going to work out tonight. No, I think Orange County has an incredibly bright future. I think Emile's spot on about creating a sense of place. What's the heart of Orange County? The mall? What's the heart of Orange County? Where's the heart? Where's the soul of the community? And again, I think that's what we're trying to create at the Great Park. And I think that Orange County has an incredibly bright future if we create, to Emile's point, change the code and zoning so that the density occurs where it should be. Obviously around transportation, around hubs. It's not just urban sprawl. And so far, up to date, the way Orange County's been planned, it's just sprawl. It's complete sprawl. And what I'm seeing around the world is the most successful cities are the ones that put density in the right place. Again, I'll say create live, work, and play, and health and wellness interspersed together, not separate, not siloed, but together and integrated. So I think again, what you need in a community like Orange County is a benchmark project. We have one, and once it gets completed, I believe that the politicians around Orange County will understand how this will create a beating heart. I think Emile said it right. It's a beating heart. It's a soul. It's a place people want to live, not have to live, a place where people can live, work, and play, and get incredible health and wellness there.
So Robert,
that's the future.
So Robert,
Don't ask me. My wife thinks I'm boring.
Yeah.
So I'm not the right one to.
So what excited you about coming to Orange County, and what concerns you about coming to Orange County?
So the excitement, and I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek because it was more filling a need. It wasn't excitement. It was looking at what the population needed in terms of cancer care and how could we fill that gap. And as I mentioned earlier, 20% of the people who are diagnosed with cancer leave the county for their care. They drive. We have many that come up to Duarte, And that can be a 50-minute drive, or it can be a 3-hour drive. And if you're getting treatment every day, that's not the right way to get cured. So it wasn't excitement, it was seeing a need. What has gotten me more excited is the discussion we've had about the possibility of creating something that then can be replicated so that we can prevent cancer up front and come up with the best treatments. We're not going to defeat and eradicate this disease without tackling the prevention side of it, and the Great Park is part of that answer.
So Emile, I'm going to ask you the question that you kind of threw the challenge out. What would you tell a politician? How would you give cover to a politician in Irvine who's going to say, we need to build 10,000 affordable housing units for the people that work here? From a political perspective, how can they do, what would you do? How would you do that?
Well, I would give them actually the support to be able to make the case, because unfortunately, a lot of politicians don't have enough backup to a decision they're going to make. They get swayed by lobbying efforts and all that. So if I'm sitting down and we have a council member, Anthony, over here, and if Anthony were to ask me that question, I would say it's simple. You're going to sit down and you're going to have a kitchen cabinet, and it's going to be Andy, and it's going to be Robert, it's going to be me, it's going to be 6 others who come from different parts of the world who are thinking about the future. And they're going to sit down and going to tell you what they think, because none of them are going to be biased. They're going to give you their opinion. I will also say that we have some of the greatest research universities out there here who can actually give you unbiased data and conclusions as to what they think. We read them, but we're not engaging them. So if he goes and he needs to go and goes up against the stream and make a decision and make a case for a change in something, and he goes and says, this is coming as a result of this research came from UCI, and my discussions with 6 of this, and here's the data, and here's the facts, then he has something to stand on. We unfortunately don't have that. We don't do it. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's federal level, state level. I deal with politicians all the time. And that's what I think needs to be done. Now, it might still not be popular, and then he's going to have to make a decision as to whether he's running to have a legacy or he's just running to fill a seat. That's a personal decision.
I would just add one other thing to that is the most successful, and you know this, Steve, because you're doing this kind of research, the most successful affordable housing is when it's part of a mixed-use project. Right. That it isn't just standalone, when you build standalone affordable housing in some corner of the city or county, that it's integrated and part of the whole. Again, creating that vibrancy and the mixture, and Emile mentioned diversity, which is so important. Diversity of people, diversity of thinking, and diversity of place. And so again, we find that whether it's 10% or 20%, but some portion of a very large mixed-use project is affordable, and therefore it's part of the context of the project.
Right.
Steve, can I tell you what? I'm going to make a prediction. We have now a governor and a regime in Sacramento that's realizing we have a housing crisis.
He wants to build 500,000 units a year.
Or whatever he wants to do, but there's now recognition, which means we now have a government that is reacting to a crisis. And here's what's going to happen. Either cities are going to have local government, which is, because land use is all local government. Either local government is going to be proactive and start actually justifying their actions based on reason, or decisions are going to be crammed down from the governor's office. Because look, I'm always very direct about these things. We have a governor who has ambitions to become president. Guess what? He's going to make sure his agenda goes through. And we're starting to see it. I mean, Huntington Beach saw it, and I think cities are going to see it. So you either react to something and have something crammed down your throat, and it's because somebody says you shall do it, right, or you actually go stand tall and say, I'm going to actually look for the right reason to do it. And I think that's what I will tell any politician, and I'm telling that to my friends, the politicians. Not popular, but I'm telling it.
Right, right. So let me go back, and Robert, questions? So Robert, there's one over here, and then I'll ask Robert a question.
Too.
Go ahead.
There's one over there.
Oh, there's one over there too? Good. We'll start right here with the gentleman. Yes.
There's one over here too. Here. Gentleman in the front right.
Thank you, and fantastic panel. David Smith with Manat. My ultimate question is California experiencing the end of the era of the master plan community? I think from the Irvine Company, Ladera, Rancho Mission Viejo, Newhall, Great Park, TI, and Hunters Point up north, they've been the labs of innovation and progressive development and conservation. But I think our reaction, our policy reactions to things like social equity, environmental justice, climate change, all very legitimate, as you were talking about earlier, have become barriers as opposed to fostering innovation. And I fear that it's become so difficult and so constrained in California that being big, bold, and innovative is just too much for local politicians to see and approve.
No, the answer is no. I think that the era of the, I don't know, second or third version of master plan communities, if you assume Levittown was the first version, is over. I think that the concept of a master plan community being a large community with enough amenities and critical mass, but mainly residential in nature, it's not. I think that the Irvine Ranch is not a master plan community. I think what the Irvine Company has done is build cities, fully integrated cities. Now, maybe the product will change. Maybe the mix of things will change. Maybe we'll have less silos in terms of where to live and what, but we have all the elements. So I would tell you that I think the master plan community is evolving. And I'm going to tell you that, in my opinion, taking a obsolete mall and doing a intensified mixed use on it is a master plan community. It just happens to be a little bit more vertical.
It's interesting.
Andy, go ahead.
I would just answer that exactly like Emile said. I think we're seeing, maybe it's not mixed-use communities, but they're mixed-use districts. All around the world, we're working on projects, massive projects, and in California, massive mixed-use projects that have the appropriate density and based on some of the major challenges that we're dealing with, whether it's net zero or introducing health and wellness in projects. So I think it's about creating great districts. We're working on a project in Santa Clara that's about 14 million square feet that's going to be built at one time. So when people say master plan communities are dead, I say no, it's master plan districts, incredible districts that have that vibrancy. And whether it's horizontal district or vertical district, they're integrated and whole.
Great. Yes.
Good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Brenda Rodriguez, and I'm with Affordable Housing Clearinghouse. My question is, as far as affordable housing, we see all these wonderful, homes that are being built in places like Irvine, but where does that leave the low-income families that are, toiling day to day in our communities as electricians, teachers, et cetera? I don't see that part of the conversation, and there's a lot of nonprofit affordable housing organizations that are working with these families who are saving for years and years, but the opportunity for them to become vested stakeholders as first-time home buyers is not there. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can tell you what I'm doing. I don't know what I mean. Today, if you go to the Great Park, we have about 3,400 homes occupied. 544 of them meet the very low income. 544 out of 3,400 homes are occupied today by either seniors or families that meet the very low income. Those people would have never, ever put their kids in the same school as people who are buying $2 million homes. The other thing we're doing over there is, right now, if you go, we have about 50 models you can pick from, and the pricing of homes starts at 40% of the median home price. You can start at our homes in the high 400s in a market that has a median price of 1.2 million. So what we're trying to do is say, look, market rate, we hit 40% of median home price to 1.7 and give enough of a broad. And on the affordable housing, we're trying to go to the very low income and provide that. Because at the end of the day, one thing that I can tell you we stand for all day long, and that is equal access to everybody. So I think it could be done. In San Francisco, we have 32% of our homes are affordable housing. 32% in San Francisco. I didn't know that. Wow. So there's a way to do it. But the way you do it is by having somebody on the other side, on the public side, create a negotiation that incentivizes me to do that. Today, I'm willing to build 5,000 affordable housing at my project in Irvine, and I can. If you have a city on the other side says, look, we'll give you an incentive, we need 5,000 homes. Tell me what you need, and I'm a private partner who can do it.
Right, it goes back to cities being willing is the most critical determinant of what can happen. Yes, sir.
Do you have much apprehension over the developing traffic problems, particularly like a Jamboree where there are going to be several hundred condos opening, maybe more? 15,000. When the traffic already is quite severe in most of these areas.
So let me address that. Just one of the things that I don't think most people understand is the people are already here. The primary way people deal with the lack of housing they can afford is living in overcrowded circumstances. 2 or 3 families per an apartment or a house, whatever the case is. And so we have the people here not by design, which impacts infrastructure significantly more than if you actually had the housing by design for the people to go. So most of the time when you see development being built, the development's not having babies. The development's not creating population. The development's creating the opportunity for the people that are already here to be adequately housed. And so understanding that dynamic is a critical part of the conversation that often gets missed because people think houses cause people to come. The people are here anyway, we got to get them housed.
Well, let me address Irvine, because you mentioned Jamboree. Let's take that as a great case. Everybody in Irvine has convinced everybody that if you build housing, you're creating traffic. Well, the population of Irvine doubles during the day. Why? Because people live outside, they come here. If you had more of a job housing balance in Irvine, we wouldn't have the same challenge. 2, you mentioned Jamboree. Drive Jamboree. In the morning, you're driving Jamboree, it's bumper to bumper on one side, the other side is empty. And it reverses. It's simple. The world has now reversed lanes. We have technology that allows you to actually drive both ways and do that. I tried it with the city of Irvine. I talked to the traffic gurus 2 years ago when everybody was talking about traffic. I said, I'll pay for it. That's the type of policy making need. We can sit here and whine about things, or we can go fix them. And Irvine doesn't have the challenges that San Francisco or Boston has. Because, thanks to Mr. Brand, we've created a lot of capacity on the roads. We just need to utilize them right.
I think Emile's hitting it. I just add that, again, you have people that are leaving the city. Good. You got someone standing over there. No, I was just going to add, I think it comes back to good planning and zoning and looking at the future. And the way Irvine and especially Newport Beach has been planned is, you have offices and you have people living far away and they're commuting in. And so you look at the peak hour, like in 8 in the morning or 5 in the afternoon. That's when the peak commute is. Those are the issues. So again, back to appropriate planning and projects and zoning and codes that promote live, work, play, that promote the coalescing of these uses. Then people don't have to commute an hour to get to one location or another.
So do you think both can Orange County and should Orange County house the people that work in Orange County?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Look, I'm doing it. He's going to build his healthcare campus and his cancer and his hospital. And part of our healthcare campus is building housing within. You need to think about development as a campus. Everything we need to do. I am taken back by the fact that San Francisco would allow Salesforce to build a tower with a lot of people, but not require them to mitigate housing. There's no reason why that building couldn't have housed people and worked with them. We need to start thinking about communities, not the way we used to think about them. You live here, you work there, and you shop over here. You need to look at it as if it's all fully integrated. And I think that today, everything we're looking at it as if we're housing. We're talking to water polo. We have one of the largest sports complexes. We have our partnership with the Ducks. And we're actually building housing for them right now. It's in process so that their athletes can stay in the same place. If we don't, it's simple. It's not that complicated. The world has actually grown over hundreds of years that way. The more you can create a mixing of uses and in the balance, the more you can mitigate a lot of the issues that we're challenged with right now.
As we bring that talent to the Great Park, The ability to recruit to Orange County is a big draw. And more importantly, I can't tell you the number of people who live in Orange County now who say, I don't want to commute to the west side of Los Angeles. I don't want to commute to Pasadena. Is there a place near home where we can work? So to emphasize what Emile said, it's a big draw.
Steve, I want to add to that. So let's look at history. The reason why housing is always looked at negatively is because of the NIMBY movements, because you have a lot of people who basically say, not in my backyard, because if I can now constrain the supply, my home price goes up. It's not that complicated. It's all a selfish reason, and they happen to be the only ones voting, because the person who's going to live in the city doesn't have a vote, so guess what? The politicians end up listening to the people who don't want anybody to come in. That's historical, right? Now, Ventura County did something 25 years ago. They ended up passing an initiative called SOAR, Save Our Agricultural Resources, shut down the city. Today, look at Ventura County 25 years later. The economy of Ventura County is below Haiti. Home prices are going down because nobody moves there, because there's no businesses moving there, population aging, young generations leaving. We have case studies in history that we can learn from and avoid. And those are the things that I think if I'm an elected official, I'll look and say, I don't want to be Ventura County 25 years from now. Even if I'm not in office, don't want my fingerprint on something like this.
So let me now, we'll use this as the final topic, and because you wanted to make it relevant to Orange County, and not this particular crowd, but Orange County is the fastest aging county in the country.
Now you're turning it personal.
So looking at that end of the demographic, what do you see as the alternative futures for the aging of our population, and how do you see us managing through that? What thoughts come to mind?
Well, one of them is this.
Right.
Because I think if you're looking at an aging population, and we're talking about an aging population that has affluency, when that aging population is going to need health care, they shouldn't be traveling outside the county and going through the emotional stress on top of the physical stress of being away from home and away from family and putting the burden. So starting with what's going to be on everybody's mind. I'm always amazed by aging population, meaning all these facilities that house seniors. And I was talking to somebody who has a facility or 2 facilities or 3 across south of the border because it's cheaper labor. And I said, it's amazing. We're thinking about them in terms of physical health. But do you know how traumatizing it is for somebody who's old to be away from their environment, away from family, putting them over there? So you start by saying, how can I provide somebody like him to come here and create a place where people want to come here, not leave from here? And 2 is, I think, from my perspective, if you can leave 3 generations living together, if you can provide a place where if I'm living on my retirement income, I don't have to go to Palm Springs and see my grandchildren twice a year. I can see it, I can tell you from my personal experience. My dad shouldn't have lived this long. I'm convinced that he is living as long as he's living is because he's close to us and close to grandchildren. The more you can actually give that comfort of families taking together, the more you're actually benefiting not only the aging, but actually the grandchildren as well. That's my view.
The county is projected to have a 18% higher incidence rate in cancer than the rest of the country. It's growing because of the aging demographics. And I can spend the entirety of the afternoon talking to you about the need for having a support system, the need not to travel, and how cancer outcomes are impacted by the social aspects of who's around you, who's giving care, and what do you have hope to look forward to?
And I will just add to that, we're working on projects now, just like Emile and Robert are talking about, that are incorporating aging and youth. Because what makes someone who's aging feel great is being around the youth, multi-generational, not being segregated and separated off. Again, integrated together. And so we're working on buildings and projects and districts now that are integrated all ages.
Well, and think about it this way. For those of you who focus on cancer, you know that clinical trials are crucial at a time when there's so much acceleration in knowledge. Most clinical trials are set up for a younger demographic, a pre-60 demographic, and the needs are
I'm
different.
glad to hear that's younger. Go ahead, sorry.
I didn't want to insult you.
Yeah,
Try. No, but that's the point, that if you don't focus on the population, you will not have the treatments and the accelerated cures if you don't look at the right group.
Right. And allowing, as Emile was saying, people to age in place, age in their communities where they have friends, family, church, et cetera, is a powerful part of a successful community.
Creating community.
So your final comments, an exhortation to this crowd, what would you want them to leave here and go do tomorrow or the rest of today in order to make sure Orange County is moving in the right direction to create world-class cities? And Andy, we're going to start with you.
I would say let's go to work on solving these major opportunities. We've just laid out a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges. And let's coalesce and work together to make it happen here in Orange County. Let's bring public and private practice together and come together around creating a community of the future.
Very good. Robert.
And focus on relationships. Focus on finding like-minded people who are willing to not look at things through a transaction lens, but look at things through how do we help people and how do we make lives for people better.
Emile.
I think I would encourage everybody to create their own think tank and just sit there and take the time to invite people to a think tank and dream. An idea is going to come out, and an idea is going to actually evolve, and something magical will happen. We did that. Robert talked about how a year ago we started one place and where we are. And where we are today, honestly, is nothing but a second step in a journey that I think could actually change a lot of things in a lot of lives. So I think you start by, I know we all are going to leave here and have our tasks that we have to go to, and a lot of us will forget what we talked about. Take the time to just, put yourself in a think tank. Dream about the future, because if we don't, somebody else is going to craft it for us.
Very good. Let's give a huge round of applause.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.